Okay, so for those of you who are new here, my name is Cailin. Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be covering your May 2022 horoscope. So this horoscope will be applicable to Cancer risings, suns, and moons. I would say that your rising sign horoscope would be the most accurate for you overall. Having said that, because Cancer is ruled by the moon naturally, I'm sure many of you moon in Cancer people will resonate with this horoscope. And of course, with moon in Cancer horoscopes, this will be more about your living circumstances, your family life, and your emotional health and well-being. Whereas you sun in Cancer people may find that the elements of this horoscope, which talk about your career, your status in the world and in the workplace, and your life goals or your mission in life will reflect for you more poignantly. So let's begin with the new moon eclipse in the sign of Taurus. So this will be taking place on the 1st of May for those of you who live in the southern hemisphere. For those of you in the northern hemisphere, this will be taking place on the 30th of April. In any case, new moon eclipses bring about some kind of new chapter starting somewhere in our lives. Now, as Cancerians, you are ruled by the moon. And this means that when there are eclipses, whether these are new moons or full moons, you're likely to notice the impacts of these more than the other signs. So, with this occurring in your 11th house at 10 degrees, this indicates that a new chapter will be commencing in one or more of the following areas for you. There may be a new long-term goal or dream that is being actualized or realized around this point in time. Now, this could be connected to your career, to your life goals, or to your mission in life. And I'm saying this because this new moon eclipse will actually be making a sextile to a lot of planets in the sign of Pisces. So we will have Mars in Pisces at 11 degrees. We will have Neptune at 24 degrees Pisces, and Venus and Jupiter will be conjunct. In fact, they'll be 1 minute apart at 27 degrees in the sign of Pisces. And this sextile is from your 11th house, where the new moon is taking place, to your 9th house, where all of the planets in Pisces are. So, with Mars ruling over your 10th house, which represents your reputation, your career, and your status in life, this is where we get the whole new long-term goals pertaining to your careers conversation going on. Now, Jupiter, which is conjunct Venus, rules over your 9th house, and the 9th house is connected to spirituality, religion, travel, and higher education. So some of you may actually be starting a social media channel which is connected to something of an educational nature. Maybe it's a travel blog. Maybe you're going to be starting a social media account or building a website which is connected to travel or to higher education. On a different level, Mars rules over your 5th house, which is the sign of Scorpio. So maybe some of you are putting the wheels in motion for long-term goals and dreams which are connected to your hobbies, your passions, and this could also pertain to owning your own business. So some of you may have started your own business already, and now you're basically scoping out the future and seeing what direction you want to take it in. On a different level, the 11th house represents our community and our wider friendship network. So some of you may be joining or even forming a new community or group. Now, this could be in the online sphere or this could be in person. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But with Jupiter being involved with this particular new moon eclipse, this represents that for many of you, you will be meeting or at least encountering like-minded individuals, whether this is about your philosophical beliefs, your religious beliefs, or your spiritual beliefs. Now, for those of you who are already in the spiritual or religious community, you could actually be forming your own community, and this could reach a very large group of people. Now, with eclipse energy and eclipses themselves, it's important to note that eclipses don't bring about the fully formed idea. So it's not as though you're going to get all of this done within a matter of a week or two. The new moon eclipse indicates the catalyst or the correspondence or having the impetus to do something. So it could just be that you're registering a .com, but it could take another 3 or 6 months or even 18 months to get what you want to get going off the ground. Now, the 11th house is also connected to new innovations and new technologies. So, with the new moon eclipse making a sextile to Mars, and this is with an orb of 1 degrees, which is very, very close. This indicates that maybe you will be developing some new technology which involves engineering or pioneering in some sort of new territory, or exploring some kind of new industry, or basically uncharted territory. Now, this could also be connected to the educational system or the tourism industry. On a different level, with this sextile to the stellium of planets in your 11th house, and with Jupiter being highly involved here, you may actually be wanting to look at social justice issues, or perhaps you have an idea about, or ideations, I should say, for becoming a lawyer or a judge or a justice or something of that nature. Now, lastly, with this new moon eclipse, it will actually be conjunct Uranus, which will be at 14 degrees in the sign of Taurus. So basically, this brings about some sort of sense of urgency to the eclipse, or this could be like a sudden download of information, and you could actually have the fully formed idea even if you haven't put it in motion. I know this contradicts what I said before just slightly, but essentially, with the conjunction to Uranus plus the sextile to Neptune, it's weird. It's almost like um, you may be able to sense the full scope or idea of what you want to do, even if you don't have all of the information just yet. Now, on the 10th of May, we are going to see Jupiter enter the sign of Aries. And Jupiter hasn't actually been in Aries for about 12 years. And that is because Jupiter takes 12 years to move through all 12 zodiac signs. So, with Jupiter being in your 10th house, this can represent your workload expanding exponentially. Now, I myself am a Gemini rising, so I have been experiencing Jupiter transit my 10th house in the sign of Pisces, and I can tell you firsthand that the workload has been off the charts. There were times where I didn't have a day off in well, actually, I don't want to freak you guys out. It was like 2 or 3 months, but bearing in mind that I am going through my Saturn return. Anyway, Jupiter in the 10th house can actually bring you a lot of public recognition. You can become well known for some sort of area of expertise or wisdom that you have and that you're sharing. Now, this can see you receiving a position of leadership. It's important to remember that Jupiter rules over your 6th house, which represents your work, and it also rules over your 9th house. And the 9th house is connected to education, spirituality, philosophy, and religion. So some of you could become well known for being a religious figure, a spiritual figure, a philosophical figure, or you could become well known in your place of work for a job well done, or for simply uh, having your full potential be realized by your superiors. So this could be an authority figure, this could be your boss, or even your boss's boss, or people in a higher level or upper level of management, I should say. So maybe they are saying, hey, we've noticed that you're a really hard worker. So we're going to give you this stretch goal and lump a huge project onto your plate to see how you perform. On a different level, with Jupiter ruling over your ninth house, which represents publications, some of you may actually become a published writer. So, this could be you having authored a book or an essay or an article, and you could certainly be in the spotlight for something that you have published. It doesn't necessarily need to be something that you've published recently. Maybe now whatever you have written is suddenly being circulated, and this is sort of like shining the spotlight onto you. Now, the 10th house represents our status. I like to think of the 10th house as being your resume. So it represents things which are, well, can be irrefutable facts, such as your relationship status. And by that, I mean a person is either married or divorced, in a relationship or single. Now, this can also pertain to employment, so employed or unemployed. In any case, with Jupiter ruling over the sixth house, which represents your work, this could see you becoming gainfully employed. And Jupiter is the planet which is connected to marriages, and Jupiter rules over the ninth house. And the ninth house is also connected to um, religious and spiritual ceremonies, well, any kind of ceremony. I know we like to think of the seventh house as our marriage partner, but the ninth house is also very much connected to marriage. So some of you may become married or even engaged. Now, on a different level, this can see your status with regard to your living circumstances and property ownership changing. And I'm saying this because Venus will also be in the sign of Aries, and it will enter Aries on the 3rd of May, and it will be there until the 28th of May. So Venus rules over your your fourth house, which is Libra. So this could see you now being known as a property owner, an investment owner, a a renter, and so on and so forth. Or maybe you now own an Airbnb. In any case, how you are known or your status with regard to property can fluctuate during this period of time. So, just to tell you that period of time, Jupiter will be in Aries from the 10th of May. Sorry, I'm filming this during April. So, from the 10th of May until the end of October in 2022, at which point it will retrograde back into the sign of Pisces, and then it will re enter Aries on the 20th of December, and it will be there until sometime in July in 2023. So essentially, all of these things which I've mentioned with regard to Jupiter transiting your 10th house in Aries can take place at some point during those two periods of time. Now, something else that I wanted to mention is that your status with regard to your visa or something to do with citizenship or foreign documents and paperwork could change. And that is because Jupiter rules over your ninth house. So perhaps you are obtaining a visa for a foreign country. Now, on a different level, Jupiter represents teachers, preachers, and with it ruling over the ninth house, this can indicate that you may become a teacher, you may graduate from some sort of higher form of learning or education. And just something to note, on one hand, Jupiter brings blessings because it is the planet which is associated with wealth and abundance and prosperity and good fortune. Now, I'm very happy that both Jupiter and Venus will be in your 10th house at the same time, because while Jupiter is the greater benefic in astrology, Venus is considered to be the lesser benefic. So they both bring good fortune and blessings and abundance in slightly different ways. Having said all that, because these two planets will be making a square to you as a Cancer sun, moon, or rising, this can actually bring expansion or some sort of, I was going to say, um, like being well known in the public, but this could exceed what you're comfortable with. So, just as an example, maybe your popularity is shooting straight up and you're, a very private person, or you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to deal with all of these changes and I'm hearing from all these people. And that could be quite overwhelming for you on a different level. You may actually receive a promotion or more work responsibilities, and it's sort of like your boss or people in a position of power or authority in your workplace see the potential in you, but you're like, no, 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 I'm actually not ready for this. So just know that Jupiter squares can bring expansion through what I would like to call growing pains or a stretch goal. Okay, I don't want to freak you guys out. As you know, I've just mentioned I've had Jupiter in my 10th house and it has squared the hell out of my ascendant, and it's brought me so many blessings, and it's brought me blessings to my career and my reputation and status. The trade off, though, has been a crazy workload and at times having to sacrifice elements of my social life because of this huge increase in my workload, and also just like my responsibilities and duties. So, everything that I've just said with regard to my own experience can be applied to you because you're essentially experiencing the same set of transits in that way. Now, also, on the 10th of May, we are going to see Mercury station retrograde in Gemini at 4 degrees. So, this will be occurring in your 12th house. What I like about Mercury retrograde periods occurring in the 12th house is that you don't get that crazy influx of calls and messages and just, having to deal with real world stuff, because the 12th house is pretty much the invisible world. Having said that, Mercury will start off retrograde in your 12th house, then it will retrograde back into the sign of Taurus in your 11th house. So that's when you're going to get the influx of calls and notifications and stuff that you have to do. So, with Mercury being retrograde in your 12th house, this can see you putting the focus onto your own personal experience with spirituality. Maybe you're getting back in touch with your spiritual side. Maybe you're going back to learning about astrology or practicing the tarot, or trying to hone and cultivate your own intuitive and psychic gifts. Now, this can see some of you going back to your trusty astrologer and tarot reader for another reading. And I'm saying this because Mercury brings things back from the past, and Mercury rules over your third house as well as your 12th house. And the third house represents communications. So if you have been thinking about booking another, for example, astrology reading or tarot reading or Reiki healing session, this would be an amazing time to do so. Despite this being a general reading, I would advise that you go back to someone that you have had a reading with before. And that is because retrograde periods are about revisiting something from the past or redoing it rather than trying something totally new. The exception to this would be if you had, let's say, an astrology reading that was booked and you've had to cancel it several times, or it's been delayed and now it's been postponed to the retrograde period, that would still be in alignment with, retrograde territory. On a different level, you may just be re-listening to recorded readings that you had with some sort of spiritual practitioner. You may be rereading notes or books or texts, or re-watching documentaries or films which are connected to 12th house topics. So that would be anything spiritual, anything esoteric, anything to do with the film and musical industries. And also, the 12th house is connected to substances and pharmaceuticals. So maybe you're revisiting some information on those particular topics. The 12th house is also connected to one of my favorite things to talk about, ghost stories and paranormal experiences. So if you have any, please comment them down below and I'll get a kick out of reading those. Now, the 12th house is connected to marine life and oceans. So, some of you may just be going back to study or learn about, I don't know, Antarctica or something to do with our oceans and preserving them. On a different level, you may find that psychic or intuitive abilities that you are already aware of, you're now able to consciously hone these skills or practice these skills, and maybe you're able to convert them into a skill. So just as an example, maybe you had always, well, maybe for a long time, you've known how to give astrology readings or tarot readings, but you only did it for yourself or for friends. During this Mercury retrograde period, you may want to expand that and maybe even start a business out of it. And I'm saying this because Mercury rules over your third house, which is connected to self-made worth. Now, Mercury rules over communications, as does the third house, which Mercury rules over. So, with Mercury being retrograde in the 12th house, which is connected to the other side, some of you may find that you are receiving messages from loved ones on the other side, or from your spirit guides or your spiritual team. And more specifically, you may actually find that you get messages from your paternal grandmother, which would be your father's mother, or this could be messages from the other side from your maternal grandfather, which would be your mother's father. So, lastly, with Mercury retrograde in your 12th house, this is a great time to recommence any kind of artistic or musical project which you had pushed the pause button on. Now, on the 22nd/23rd of May, Mercury will retrograde from Gemini in your 12th house back into Taurus in your 11th house. So, the 11th house represents our wider network, our acquaintances, co workers, colleagues, friends, friends of friends, business connections, and so on and so forth. So, with Mercury being retrograde here, you can actually reconnect with some of these individuals, okay? Maybe one of them, maybe several of them, and you can reestablish relationships, you can reform relationships, you can redefine relationships. And if you had actually been estranged from one of these people, you may be putting your differences aside and basically getting onto the same page. And you may actually find that during this period of time, you have the ability to see things from each other's perspective. So, just by the way, the Mercury retrograde period will end around the 3rd or the 4th of June. So, on a different note, if you had an unstable relationship, which has been on the rocks for quite a while with one or more of those individuals, this could see you finally calling it quits with this person or with these individuals. Now, with the 11th house representing your long term goals and dreams, this is about you revisiting those, pivoting, making adjustments. And this is especially the case if it is connected to some sort of educational course that you have been taking or that you have been developing. This can also be connected to your social media accounts or platforms. Some of you may find that you are reactivating them after a hiatus period, or maybe you're deactivating your accounts. In some way, shape, or form, this does indicate there being changes to how you run your social media platforms and accounts. And also, you may be looking at changing up your branding or the kinds of products that you sell online or the kinds of services that you offer. Now, with the 11th house representing communities and friendship groups, some of you may be rejoining a community. You may be reuniting with an old group of friends. And for those of you who ran some kind of community group or maybe even a political campaign, you could be going back to this. So maybe you're deciding to run it again or be involved again. And lastly, the 11th house represents awards and competitions and receiving accolades and recognition. So if you had entered some kind of competition, or if you had applied to win some kind of award, this would be, and you were unsuccessful in the first instance, this would be a good time for you to reapply and, throw your hat in the ring once again. Now, on the 16th of May, we're going to see a total lunar eclipse take place in the sign of Scorpio at 25 degrees. So, this will be occurring in your fifth house, and this particular eclipse will be making a trine to Mars and Neptune, which will be in Pisces in your ninth house. And this eclipse will also be squaring Saturn in Aquarius in your eighth house. Now, as Cancerians, you will always be impacted heavily by eclipses, and especially full moon eclipses. So, even if it's not in your sign, it doesn't matter. I know you Cancers are very sensitive to the phases of the moon and especially eclipses. So, please don't be surprised if any time between now, which as I'm filming is the 15th of April, and well, maybe even the first or second week of June, if you experience disturbances to your sleeping patterns, sleeping cycles, maybe you're waking up in the middle of the night, maybe you're going to bed earlier or later than normal, or waking up earlier or later than normal. And also, um, this can see you feeling really, really emotional. And even if you're not, being crazy emotional, you may notice that other people are, or maybe your pets are being more needy around this period of time. So, with the full moon eclipse taking place in your fifth house, I'll run through a few different ways that this can impact you. Some of you may be falling pregnant. Actually, wait, before I go on, let me just say that the Cancerians who will be the most impacted by this transit will be Cancer risings and suns between 20 degrees and 29 degrees. Bonus points if you're at 25 degrees. And with moon in Cancer people, I'll extend this a bit further to be 17 degrees through till 29 degrees. And again, bonus points if you're, 25 or even 23, 25, 26, sorry, 24, 25 or 26 degrees. Anyway, so this can see some of you falling pregnant. This can see some of you finishing a creative project or having a creative breakthrough. This can see some of you selling your business or closing it down. For others of you, you can be turning an important, what what was I going to say? Starting a new chapter, or basically ending a chapter, I should say, with regard to your love life. So that doesn't necessarily need to be that you are breaking up with them. It could be that if you had some differences between you and your significant other, maybe now you're finally laying them to rest. Now, on a different level, the fifth house is connected to children. So if you've been experiencing certain issues or complications with one of your children, highly likely this would be the firstborn, doesn't have to be. You can finally know that you're turning over this new chapter your child can be moving on from some sort of difficult stage in their lives. Now, just to flesh out this square to Saturn in Aquarius in your eighth house, and then the trine to Mars and Neptune in Pisces in your ninth house, and what this means. First of all, Mars rules over the sign of Scorpio. So we can say that Mars is the ruler of this total lunar eclipse. So in my books, that's really, really good. And this does overpower, in my opinion, the square to Saturn in Aquarius in your eighth house. So essentially, I see this as some sort of powerful ending taking place in your life, which is going to serve your best interests in the long term, as shown by Mars and Neptune being in your ninth house. So maybe this is going to open some doorways for what you want to do in the future. This could be, as an example, connected to education, international travel, your ability to connect to a coach or even like a religious or a spiritual figure, but this could come through some form of peak point or a crisis. And I'm saying that because of the square to Saturn in Aquarius in the eighth house. Now, as it turns out, I natally have Saturn in Aquarius in the eighth house. So I can shed a little light on this personally. Saturn in the eighth house likes to cling to things that no longer serve them. And that is because the eighth house represents sudden reversals and transformation and healing and things changing. And Saturn just wants to like put its claws in and grip onto this for dear life. So it could even be that you know deep down, intuitively and psychically, that you need to take this important new step in your life, or close the door on a certain relationship or a chapter in your life. But then Saturn in the eighth house and with this square to it, it's like, no, what about the memory of this? Or are you sure this is the right decision? What if I give this person another chance? What if I give my business another chance? What if my child still needs me? And it's like, no, that might be enabling. Or, you've tried as hard as you can with this relationship. It's time to let it go. Or your heart doesn't really, your heart's not in it with regard to what you're doing with a certain hobby or business or passion of yours. And it's like, okay, I know it's in my best interests to let it go, which is shown by this trine to Mars and Neptune in Pisces. Square to Saturn is like, it hurts to let that go. In any case, I just want to reiterate that the energy surrounding this eclipse is positive, and the positives outweigh the negatives. I really, really believe that. Now, on the 24th/25th of May, Mars is going to enter the sign of Aries. So that means that Mars will be transiting your 10th house, and it will be there until, wait, let me just check, until the 5th of July. So what this means is that there's so much focus and energy going into your career, your status, your reputation, your life goals, your vocation. And that is because we're going to have Jupiter there, Mars is there, Chiron's there for a little while yet, but we're also going to have Venus and Moon there together. So we will have these 5 placements there from, let's say, the 24th of May till about the 28th of May. So this is such a peak period of time or, focus for you with regard to your career, receiving more duties and responsibilities. You may be looking at rebranding. Your status in many different ways can change. Employment status, relationship status. You may even find out that you're pregnant on this day. You may your status with regard to your living circumstances could change. Maybe you're now living by yourself. Maybe someone's moving in. Maybe you're buying property. Maybe you're selling property. Maybe you're renting, and so on and so forth. In any case, your 10th house is lit right up. So this is a very potent period in time when it comes to being in the public eye. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, you're a celebrity. It's just like, if you want to get a message out there, if you want to apply for a promotion, if you want to launch a business, despite the fact that Mercury will be retrograde, um, I mean, I wouldn't hate on it if you launched a business during this period of time, or if you made some kind of big announcement. Just so you know, I actually started my own business during a Mercury retrograde. Despite being a Gemini rising and Virgo moon, I don't have any regrets. Sometimes when the time is right, and you've just got to go for it. On a different level, your actions will be very, very visible at this time. So on the downside, Mars in Aries in your 10th house being blown up and being expanded by the energy of Jupiter can see there being trouble with authority, trouble with your boss, whether you didn't do the right thing, or you got into an argument, or if you are in a public setting, or if you are, let's just say, broadcasting something, you'll just want to err on the side of caution when it comes to coming across as too pushy or bossy. or aggressive, even if you think you're being assertiveness during this period of time, especially, 24th of May till 28th of May, can come across super duper aggressive. I know you're Cancerians, so you're probably like me, aggressive, never, which is fair enough. But I just thought that I would throw it out there. In any case, I see this as being a very, very exciting period of growth for you with respect to not just your career, but your life goals as well. Even for those of you who are retired, this can see you being somehow elevated within um, within your community. And so, Cancer, I'm going to leave it there for today. If you enjoyed this horoscope, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to book a one-on-one astrology or tarot reading with me, you can do so by clicking on the link in the description box below. All my readings are done via Zoom video call, which can be recorded. So the format is pretty much this. So, Cancer, enjoy your month of May, and I will see you guys next time.